Broadside Podcast. I'm Andy Elliott, your host here at the Broadside. Today's another episode of what I'm calling the Bulletin. It's just kind of a solo episode with me telling you a little bit about the news and some upcoming events here in the Pacific Northwest. I just want to say thanks to everybody that's been listening. We're up over 1,000 downloads now. I might do a little bit of a giveaway, a little gift pack. So if you're listening to this, I think what I'll do is go to my Instagram at Elliott_Outdoors. And, you know, if you're like and following my page, just comment on the post for this episode and just comment, stay wild. I'll pick somebody at random, get your address, send you a gift pack. With that being said, let's see, first off, a coalition of hunting groups led by the Sportsman's Alliance has submitted a petition to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service urging the removal of gray wolves in the upper Midwest from the Endangered Species Act. But what makes this petition noteworthy is the simultaneous request for the special management consideration for the wolves in western states outside the core Rocky Mountain region. In their petition, the hunting groups aim to address the concerns raised by the courts about the complete removal of federal protection of gray wolves, particularly as their population expands into California, Oregon, and Washington. The first petition, co-signed by the Michigan Bear Hunters Association, Upper Peninsula Bear Houndsmen Association, and Wisconsin Bear Hunters Association, emphasizes the recovery of the gray wolves in the western Great Lakes states, according to Todd Atkins, Vice President of Government Affairs at the Sportsman's Alliance. The gray wolf population in the upper Midwest have far exceeded federal recovery goals, with a total population exceeding 4,000 wolves, including estimates of 2,700 in Minnesota, 1,000 in Wisconsin, and over 600 in Michigan. It is evident that these populations have made significant strides towards recovery. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has previously delisted the Western Great Lakes distinct population segment on multiple occasions. However, a federal judge later overturned the delisting, citing concerns about the protection of remnant wolves outside the established population segments. These remnant wolves, located in various parts of the country, were the focus of the court's decision, indicating the need to address their protection. To address this concern, the second petition lodged by the hunting group suggests the creation of a new distinct population segment called the West Coast Wolf, DPS, WCW DPS, DPS meaning distinct population segment. This segment would include the partially recovered and rapidly growing wolf populations in Northern California, Eastern Oregon, and Northeastern Washington. The coalition recommends listing the WCW DPS as threatened, allowing for greater flexibility in management while still providing protection for the population. Additionally, the petition proposes the establishment of a non-DPS category for the wolves in the lower 48 states that are not covered by an established DPS. This would ensure continued protection for these wolves under the Endangered Species Act, as originally listed in 1978. By submitting these two petitions together, the hunting groups aim to provide a clear pathway for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to recognize the successful recovery of the population where it has occurred, while also addressing the concerns of the courts by ensuring that protection of the remnant wolf population across the country. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service now has 90 days to respond and determine whether it is warranted or not. If deemed warranted, the agency will proceed with crafting a rule and open to a public comment period. And a full article on this is kind of where I got my notes here. It can be found at outdoorlife.com. I'll make sure to drop that link in the show notes, as long as any posts on social media. So moving on, there's a story here from thesportsmansalliance.org. Some of you might have already heard this or read this article, but June 30th was the date of it. Washington State Superior Court Judge Mary Sue Wilson issued a declaratory judgment in favor of the Sportsman's Alliance Foundation's claim that the Wildlife Commissioner Lorna Smith was in violation of state law prohibiting commissioners from simultaneously holding another elected or appointed office. There's a quote from them that says, "We are very pleased with today's decision that affirms Ms. Smith has been violating state law for more than 2 years while crafting policy that undermines scientific wildlife management and damages the state's tradition of hunting and fishing," said Todd Atkins, the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Sportsman's Alliance. It's reassuring to see that state law matters in Washington State, something the Fish and Wildlife Commission would do well to remember in the future. Looks like Lorna Smith, who was appointed to the commission in January 2021, has long served on the Jefferson County Planning Commission, with her bio on Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife website pointing out that she is currently serving her second and third terms in this position. Washington law is clear on this question. RCW 77.04.040 states that members of the Washington Fish and Wildlife Commission shall not hold another state, county, or municipal elective or appointed office. So after her declarative order, Judge Wilson asked the parties to discuss options to resolve the ongoing violation. Looks like the Sportsman's Alliance is currently reviewing alternatives and will have more to report on the final resolution of this case in the coming days and weeks. Smith is among a group of new commissioners pushing an extremist view of fish and wildlife management and is adamantly opposed to the North American model of wildlife conservation. Smith was a driving force behind the canceling of the spring black bear season, and pressed for other initiatives to destabilize traditional management approaches and systems in the state. I'm sure if you've been paying attention, you know exactly who this is referring to, and just kind of how very anti-hunting she is, and her ties to anti-hunting organizations. The Sportsman's Alliance has been watching the actions of the WFWC, Washington Fish and Wildlife Commission, for more than 2 years and filed a lawsuit on behalf of its members and sportsmen throughout the state. Joining the lawsuit were 2 Sportsman's Alliance members who are residents of Washington. The case is USSAF versus Smith, number 23-2-00660-34. I just want to say thanks to everybody at the Sportsman's Alliance for having our back and doing your due diligence. Hopefully this is a good win for us, and I'm curious to see what happens. I'm assuming she's probably just going to forfeit her appointed position and remain on the Wildlife Commission, but who knows? I guess we'll see. All right, well, moving on to some national news here, reported by Fox News on the circus that is the Biden administration in the White House. Looks like they have announced new rules that will restrict the equipment hunters can use on federal refuges. They are banning the use of certain types of ammunition and fishing tackle made with lead. Some environmental groups support this move, but many hunters are opposed to it as they believe it is an attack on hunting in general. Hunters argue that there is not enough scientific evidence to prove that lead ammunition and tackle harm wildlife populations. They accuse the administration of ignoring their concerns and pushing an anti-gun, anti-hunting agenda. The new rules will apply to 8 national wildlife refuges starting from September 2026. The government says they made the decision based on the best available science, which we know best available means whatever agrees with their agenda, hunting and fishing groups are concerned that these bans will make it more expensive for people to participate in these activities. It'll be limiting access to public lands. They also believe that The government is trying to take credit for expanding hunting while simultaneously, they're trying to take credit for expanding hunting and fishing opportunities while actually making it harder for people to hunt and fish and, less economical, which we know they're good at making things less economical. This action by the Biden administration follows a lawsuit from an environmental group against the previous administration's rule to expand hunting and fishing on millions of acres of land. Instead of defending the rule, Biden and his administration reached a settlement and promised to implement more restrictions on lead ammunition. That's because we need more shit for the government to have control of. Hunting and fishing groups are now urging Congress to pass a law that would prevent federal agencies from banning lead ammunition or tackle without strong scientific evidence. They want to ensure that decisions about equipment restrictions are based on reliable research and not people's feelings. So I guess we'll see what happens there. And then another thing that's came up that I found pretty interesting. Colorado needs wolves. I'll get into reading that here. I'll post a link to the Biden article as well from Fox News. But this Colorado wolf deal is pretty interesting. They need 10 to 15 wolves donated to them per year for the next 5 years, according to a voter-mandated reintroduction efforts. Idaho and Wyoming has made things a little bit more interesting on other states when they denied the request of Colorado for wolves. Now, how all this ties into Washington is that they have asked Washington for wolves, and you'd know that if you watched the last meeting, and kind of how nervous that made everybody on the commission. So, in the last episode I did with Charles from Howl for Wildlife, he kind of goes into that a little bit. That would be the Broadside episode 10, I believe. He kind of explains why it's interesting to see how Washington's going to handle this, because if they begin donating wolves to Colorado, they would have to downgrade the wolves on the endangered species list, which in turn would be basically admitting that we have plenty of wolves in the state. So it's going to be interesting to see how that's handled. And yeah, so let's see here. What do I got next? That last article, that can be found. I believe I got the information for the Colorado stuff off of Northwest Sportsman's Magazine's website. That's another thing at nwsportsmanmag.com. I will be also dropping links for them in the show notes and on all social media platforms. They're a great resource for information. And speaking of them, if you're, one of those argumentative dolts on Facebook who kind of cry when you get called out for not being actively protecting our way of life, and I keep getting the "it falls on deaf ears" comments, and I don't think that's true. And even if it does, at least we're still trying to do something about it. But speaking of deaf ears, there's a whole article published on June 27th from Northwest Sportsman's Mag at nwsportsmansmag.com, and it highlights all of the reactions from the commissioners and what they heard during the last meeting and the concerns of their preservation policy is what we're calling it. They might not like what hunters have to say, but it's not on deaf ears. And if it wasn't for people like some of the guests I've recently had, and everybody continuing to show up at these, they would have gotten away with a lot more shit than they already have. But so on a little lighter note, there's some good stuff coming up. So I'll kind of end this episode with a few reminders. The BHA is doing a Spokane River cleanup event on July 15th at the Upriver Park, 1667 East Upriver Drive in Spokane, Washington. You can find more info on that at their website. Or on their social medias pages on Instagram. Like I said, I'll be dropping links for all that too. What what else we got here? Looks like the WDFW posted something that there's, most of you are hopefully aware, there's new restrictions in effect in Eastern Washington for campfires, target shooting, and other activities. So make sure before you go out and go play, get on their website and check the area and the restrictions in that area, because living over here, we're getting, we always get hammered with smoke. So anything we can do to stop spreading these fires would be great. So also coming up is the next commission meeting, Friday, July 14th. They're going to be talking about bears, bats, land tracks, and land transactions. So let's show up. It's about bears. We need to get involved. And also, if you've not heard, I want to say thanks to everyone involved in the new Washington chapter of the American Bear Foundation. Thanks, Doug and Mike, for joining me on the last episode. I appreciate all the stuff you guys do. I'll be posting a bunch of links, show notes. If there's anything you think is pressing, you want me to cover, feel free to send me messages. Don't forget to follow, share this episode's picture on Instagram, comment Stay Wild, and I'll be picking someone at random to send you guys a free gift pack for hitting 1,000 downloads. So I can also be found on Threads, whatever the hell that is. I haven't really figured it out. I've got a YouTube channel. There's not a whole ton of stuff on there. Just, kind of some of the Zoom meetings, audio coverage of some of these podcasts, if that's maybe where you want to listen to it. But if you can go check that out, subscribe there. I'm hoping now that I got my cast off, once I get some better motion in my arm, I'm going to be doing some gear reviews, and doing some more filming of some stuff and some more content on there. So, please give that a check. Check that out. So I start physical therapy tomorrow. I went out, put some cameras up, and I'm hoping here by August. I don't see myself being able to shoot my bow by then. Hopefully by September that happens. But I'm gonna go out and do my best to do some bear hunting. I hope you do too. If you got any questions or concerns, give me a holler and stay well.
Straight honey, back road, take it anywhere.